What's up, folks? It's your boy Coach Ty back at you with another one. Now, I often get asked, Ty, what's your number one tip that you would give to beginners or to people in their first year of lifting? And my answer is always progressive overload or tracking your progress. Building muscle is a very biologically demanding process. It's very taxing on the body. So not only do you have to lift weights, but you have to continue lifting more weight volume-wise in order for the body to continue building muscle. Your body kind of doesn't want to build muscle because it is so taxing on the body, and also because it's going to require more calories. Our hunter-gatherer brains don't want us to require more calories to get around every day because, starvation. Again, I say this to say you have to give the body very good reason over and over and over and over to continue building muscle long term. And that's where progressive overload comes in. So let's get into the research. There are 4 key principles in regards to a strength training program. We've got specificity, the specific things that you're choosing for yourself in your strength training program. The primary thing you want to do here is identify what your goals are and then reverse engineer from there. Choose exercises, volume, frequency, etc. that speak to your particular goals. Number 2, individuality. This speaks to your individual needs. In most cases, the most important factor here is going to be your injuries. So if you've got a bad shoulder, you might need to choose different exercises. If you've got a bad knee injury from playing football when you were in high school, you might need to choose different exercises. Our next one is variety, and this is where periodization comes into play. So periodization just means the period in which you are doing a specific program, and then after that period, you're gonna change things a bit. Now, changing things can mean changing the exercises, it can mean changing the rep ranges, the sets. You've got a few options for variety, not just changing the exercises, which is where people's minds tend to go. And then finally, progressive overload. This speaks to how you're going to progress through your workouts. Now, usually this just takes the form of either adding weight, reps, or sets over time. Progressive overload doesn't usually come into account during the initial planning phase, but is look, I can't even say it because it's so mind-numbingly important that I'm stuttering over my words. Progressive overload is of the utmost importance week over week. And again, this is because of strength gain. Now, while strength gain and muscle growth they don't have a cause and effect relationship, they are highly correlated. And in the absence of, let's say, a DEXA scan or some other expensive, complicated machinery, your best bet for knowing if you're building muscle week over week, the best bet for knowing if your program is working is if you're getting stronger. And let me reiterate, just because, again, I really want to drive this point home. If your previous workout was effective, then you should be able to do either more weight or more reps, typically not more sets. We typically keep the sets the same week over week, but we definitely want to at least get more reps or do a little bit more weight each week. You should always be trying to progress, and if you are unable to progress, there are a few reasons why maybe you weren't able to. Reason number 1, and this is in no particular order. Reason number 1, your previous workout was ineffective. Reason number 2, you were lacking in sleep. This is a huge one. There's so many people who are chronically underslept, and sleep gets I'm gonna make a video on sleep soon. Sleep does not get nearly enough attention put on it for how important it is. 3, high levels of stress. And 4, inadequate caloric intake, if you're just not consuming enough calories. All in all, if you're not progressing, something is wrong. Now, the next natural question is, how do I make sure I am progressing? This is where keeping a dedicated logbook or using an app like MuscleWiki.com comes into play. Let's say, for example, last week you did a push workout in which you did 5 exercises and you did either 4 or 3 sets. Let's just say 3 sets on each exercise. So that's 15 sets in one workout. You did a particular amount of weight on each set based on which exercise you were doing. Are you really going to remember how much weight you did on each of those sets a week ago? Probably not. Also, are you going to remember how much weight and the exact amount of reps you did on each set a week ago? Again, probably not. So the best thing to do here is to track it. Now, again, there's multiple options for this. I personally have been very old school for my almost 11 years of lifting and just keep a notebook. Yes, people look at me a little funny, but they're not making gains like I'm making. So they can look at me funny. I don't care. You can also use Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets if you're a big time numbers person. That's another option. And of course, there are apps out there that are purely for the purpose of tracking. Now, I would recommend the MuscleWiki tracker, but there are others out there, but I'm not going to tell you about those for obvious reasons. The MuscleWiki tracker has over 1,100 exercises that you can put into your workouts and then track over time. Quick side note, this is also applicable if you're in the gym to become more athletic. There is tons of research amongst every sport that you can think of demonstrating that the more muscular and the leaner the athlete was, the better they performed. The more explosive they were, so the higher they were able to jump, the quicker they were able to get into a sprint, and also the less susceptible to injury they were. Because obviously lifting weights doesn't just build our muscles, it builds our bones and our joints. So if you are playing basketball, swimming, surfing, baseball, American football, football, almost said soccer. There is even research on judo showing that the more muscular judo athletes performed better than their less muscular counterparts. So this isn't just if you're trying to get jacked or make gains or get ripped or whatever it might be. If you're playing a sport, these concepts still apply. All right, I always try to give some practical advice. So let's go through a quick how-to with progressive overload. First, you're gonna wanna choose a rep range based on, again, your goals, your specific goals with that particular exercise that you're doing. I usually base rep ranges on one, the body part that I'm training, whether it's fast or slow twitch, and then also the exercise that I'm doing. But rep ranges are a bit beyond the scope of this video. I'm gonna make a video on the adequate rep ranges for each body part. So let's just say for the sake of discussion, our rep range is 8 to 12. You've also got the amount of sets that you're doing on that particular exercise. I use the same fiber typing concept to decide how many sets to do. So again, just for the sake of this discussion, let's say 3 sets of 8 to 12. Here's a couple of options for progressing. First, number 1, using your first set as a benchmark set or a test, a fair test. Now, this is most applicable if you are not a person who times their rest periods, which, let's all be honest, most people don't. If you hit the top of your rep range, in this instance 12, exactly 12, then you're gonna increase the weight in your following workout. If you go beyond your rep range, so let's say you get 14 on your first set, then you need to increase the weight on your second set because it's a bit too light. If you don't quite get to the bottom end of your range, 8 in this case, then you need to decrease the weight on your following set. Let's say you hit dead in the middle of your rep range. Let's say you get 10 on your first set. The following week, keep the weight the same and see if you can get 11 or 12. Another option you have here is trying to increase the amount of reps you get on every single set. Now, this is applicable, again, if you are timing your rest periods. The reason the rest period part is so important, quick side note, is if your rest periods are different, then you're not doing a fair test. And ultimately, that's what we're doing by assessing the amount of reps we're getting on each set. We're testing to see if our program was effective from last week, if our workout worked from last week. So we have to keep the testing fair. If you rest, let's say 90 seconds between set 1 and set 2 last week, and you only rested 45 seconds between set 1 and set 2 this week, well, now the parameters are different. So you're likely going to get fewer reps, but it's not because you didn't get stronger, it's because you rested half the amount of time that you did last week. So again, only use the each set rep count if you are keeping up with your rest periods, or if you can keep them mostly the same. Mostly, they should be mostly the same. If it's not exactly 2 minutes each time, then that's not gonna make or break things, but they should be within at least 20 seconds of one another. Let's say you are keeping up with your rest periods and we're gonna try to increase the amount of reps with the same weight on each set. Let's say last week you got 11 reps and then 10 reps and then 8 reps on your 3 sets. Next week, see if you can get 12, 11, and 10. Or if you're able to go beyond your rep range, 13, 12, and 10. Now let's say also, hypothetically, that you're only able to get 1 more rep across all 3 sets. So you're only able to get 1 more rep on your first set that you did. This is still progress. You can still count this as a win. I've found with clients over the years, back from my personal training days, if they weren't able to do more weight, or if they weren't able to do at least 2 or 3 more reps on each set, that they would consider it as a failure or a loss, and that's not the case. If you're only able to get 1 more rep across all 3 sets, that is still progress. You still moved forward, that's a win. And if you only add 1 more rep each week, and then you lift for 5 years, you're gonna look up and you're gonna be pretty damn strong and pretty damn swole. You're gonna make a whole lot of gains getting 1 more rep each week for years. Last point, what I mentioned earlier about beginners needing to keep their programs largely the same over time. So again, consider this. So we've got strength gain and we've got muscle gain. The two are not cause and effect, but they are highly correlated with one another, and you can use strength gain as a way of knowing if you are gaining muscle. But the problem comes in with a lot of people where they switch the exercises constantly, and beginners are particularly keen on changing the exercises, confusing the muscles. Muscles are stupid. They're so stupid they can't be confused. Changing the exercises constantly every 2 weeks or every month is generally too much. I historically have done programs for usually about 6 months long before making major changes. There will be some variation in there where I'll shift an exercise here and there, but for the most part, the program stays the same. Now, what this allows me to do is to double down on progressive overload, but one thing to know about the nervous system is when you begin doing a new exercise, especially for a beginner because you've never done this exercise consistently, is your strength gain in the beginning for the first few weeks will not be coming necessarily from muscle growth, although that will be happening too. It's more so coming from your nervous system adapting to said movement. So we can't reliably count on the strength gain as an indicator of muscle growth because of that. Now, after a few weeks of doing a particular exercise, that nervous system adaptation will kind of hit a point of diminishing returns. And then after that, we can reliably say that any strength gain past that point is coming from muscle growth and an effective program. Keep the variation to a minimum. Keep your exercises mostly the same over time. I would say at least 3 months, if not more like 4 or 5 for a beginner. That's it, folks. Thank you guys for listening. As always, I appreciate your time. I would be honored if you would like, comment, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. Please let me know what you want to hear from me next. I'm Coach Ty with MuscleWiki, and I will see you with the next one. Deuces.